Hello and welcome to this short webinar to help you with referencing when writing your assessments for the CMI certificate in coaching and mentoring at level 5 and level 7. If you're listening to this webinar, then you've already made a great choice to work with Team Boo, and as you'll know, our aim is to help organisations create happy and healthy workplaces by supporting coaching, leadership and wellbeing initiatives. My name's Karen. I'm an Associate Coach and Learning Facilitator, and I help Team Boo deliver CMI coaching and mentoring programs. So what we're going to cover in this webinar. So we're going to start with looking at why we reference, so what's the purpose of referencing, and then look at what the requirements are specifically when you're completing a CMI qualification. We'll also look at what you need to reference, and then I'll help you with a particular type of referencing called Harvard-style referencing, which is a well-recognized method for referencing. And then we'll also touch on how to present a bibliography. So why do we reference in the first place? So the overall aim of referencing is to provide enough information so that the person reading your assessment can identify the original source if they need to. So it's really important your references are correctly and consistently presented so that they can find that source. So you're probably going to reference a wide variety of different sources in your assignment. So this could be things like books, articles, or websites. And when you're using referencing, it shows that you're acknowledging the work of other people and you're not presenting the work as your own, and therefore it avoids plagiarism, which obviously we don't want. It also shows how you've understood some of the key texts which are relevant to your assessment and can demonstrate the breadth of research that you've done. Now, the terms bibliography and reference list are often used together and interchangeably, but they're actually different things. So bibliography refers to all the reading that you've done for your assessment, and not just those elements that you've referred to in the body of the assessment. The terms reference and citation are also used to mean the same thing. However, a citation tends to mean the part of your text within your assessment where you're acknowledging the source. So usually it lists the author and the year that the source was created. And at the end of your assessment, you'll need to include a full list of references with all of the details in. So it includes things like publisher and where it was published. So I'll show you how to do that shortly. So let's have a look at what the CMI requires in terms of referencing. They do expect you to present your work in a very professional way, and therefore referencing is just really good practice. And what they require is that you do acknowledge any secondary sources that you've used, or where you've used things like quotations or models or theories from different books or websites. Also, that'll just make sure that your work is complying with our policy on plagiarism. So just make sure that you're familiar with that policy as well. So the CMI itself doesn't actually require you to use a particular type of referencing, so for example Harvard referencing, but it does require you to use an appropriate referencing system so that the original sources can be found. And it just mentioning Harvard-style referencing is just a well-known and well-recognized method, and it's just generally good practice. So we're going to cover that one here. So in the body of your assessment, you do need to make sure that the referencing is included directly next to the piece of the item from the source that you included in your assessment. You can't just list all the sources at the end, so you've got to show your reference in the body of your assessment as well. You don't have to actually include a bibliography to show your wider reading, but it is just good practice. If you don't include one, then it isn't likely to be a referral from the CMI. So let's have a look at things that you need to reference. So if, for example, you're using quotations, you must provide a citation within the text. So what that is a short description of the source, and it includes the author and the year if you're using Harvard-style referencing. You then need to list that source in full at the end of your assessment with the full details of that resource. So if you're quoting things that are more than 3 lines long, then it's probably better just to indent the paragraph to show that it's a quotation. But if it's shorter than that, you can probably just show it within the main body of your assessment and maybe use quotation marks and then show the citation just next to that, so the author and the year. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's look at a straightforward reference. So if you are using a quotation from, for example, from a book, just like this, well, there's 2 different systems that are generally used in the UK. So there's Harvard style, and then there's also the British Standard Numeric system, which you may have come across. And you can use any system that you're confident with, but we're going to cover Harvard style referencing here because it is quite well recognized. So if you're using a direct quote, this needs to be shown in quotation marks, just like we've got on the screen here. And then afterwards, you put the author and the year in brackets and a page number if it's a direct quote. If you've just referred to the source, but you've not actually directly quoted it word for word, such as this, so here we're just linking into the source, we're not actually using it word for word. So you just put the author and the year in brackets within the body of the text. And then at the end of your assessment, you include a full reference list. Okay, so if you've got one source that's by more than one source by the same author, so say Pecora that we are using here has written 2 books, you can indicate them by using A and B, just like we've shown here. And then also if there's more than 2 authors, then you need to show it like this, so Smith et al, for example. If it's 2 authors, you just show it like this, so you put both of their names. So a bibliography, as I mentioned, is different. So this is all of the sources that you've used for your research. And in here, you can also include all of the sources that you used for your references that you've cited within the body of your text. So the way that you do it is that you list in alphabetical order all the different sources, and they should look like this. So you've got the author's surname and the initials, and then the title, the year of publication, then you show the title in italics, and then the edition if it's not the first edition, the place of publication, so the city, and then the publisher. So there's an example here. And this is how you would show a book. And if there's more than one source by the same author, you list the earliest one first. If it's a journal, it's very similar. So the only real difference is that you include the title of the article and the title of the journal, both in italics, and then you include the volume number and the part number and page numbers as well. And there's an example just underneath. If it's an online source, so loads of us are using online sources now, it's a really good way of doing some research as long as you know that it's a reputable source. This is the way that you list it at the end of your assessment. So it's just like a book, so you'd have the surname, the author's surname and initials. If you can't find the author's surname, sometimes you can put the organisation's name, so say if it was the CIPD, you'd use them as the author, and then just like books, you put the year, or if you can't find the year, the last update, and then the title of the page. In the square brackets, you write that it's online, and then you also say where it's available from and include the full URL, and then you also include the date that you accessed it. just like this example here. If you're using images from online, so instead of where it says online, in the square brackets you put digital image. And if you can't find a publication date, you can use the small letters N.D. in brackets, which stands for no date. And ebooks are also shown just like this as well. One of the things that might happen is you may be using some secondary sources. And a secondary reference is when you reference one author who's actually referring to the work of another author. And I would only really do this where the primary source isn't available or you can't find it. And you may be doing this because you're perhaps using Management Direct or CMI websites. So actually they would possibly count as secondary sources sometimes when they are quoting particular theorists. So this is how you would do it. In the body of your text, where it says here, this example, Whitmore cited in CMI, this is how you would show it in the body of your text. So you just put the surname, the year in brackets, and where it was cited, and if there isn't a date, no date is shown like that. And then at the end of your assessment, you just show the source that you actually used. So in this case, it was a CMI, and we list it just as we've explained before. And that's it. Hopefully that makes it easy for you. There are lots of tools that you can use to help you with references. So there are some online tools. One well-known one that I've come across is called CiteMe, and I know that's free for so many references. You could have a look at that. And I know that Microsoft Word also has a referencing tool which will help you present it in the correct way. And you can add to that as you go along. So it's worth learning how to use that too. So just a quick reminder, you need to reference all external sources that you are quoting within your assessment, and this will help you avoid plagiarism and just show the sources that you've used and the breadth of your research. Try to use a recognised references system if you can. Harvard style referencing, as we've shown here, is a really good referencing style to use because it's well recognised and it's consistent. And if you can, try and find the original source rather than quoting secondary sources. And the reason being for that is because you can't always be sure that the person quoting is actually giving you a correct interpretation of the author's original intention. So it is always better if you can to go to an original source. And if you need a reminder, there is a guide on the CMI website on referencing citations, which goes into some more detail and gives some examples of different sources and how to present them. And that's it. So thank you very much for listening and best of luck. And don't forget, if you do get stuck, just get in touch with somebody at Team Boot and we can help you. Thank you.